Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics. In this video, I'd like to discuss how Nadine Dories, who spent quite a few years in Parliament, doesn't seem to understand how Prime Ministers work. She's been under enough of them. You know, she's made certain claims about what would happen if Sunak were to call an election to head off a leadership challenge, which are completely wrong. In fact, she has been an MP at times when events have proven her wrong, showing that she really didn't pay attention or learn anything at all in Parliament. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. So Nadine Dories, Mad Nads, or as we must refer to her, the former Culture Secretary, to the eternal shame of our once respected nation, not a lady mind you, which I think still rankles with her. She has said that if Rishi Sunak tries to call an election in order to head off MPs trying to replace him, that he would face a palace coup before he reached Buckingham Palace. In reality, she is dead wrong. Rishi Sunak has the power to call an election anytime he likes, and there's nothing anyone could do to stop him in that moment. In fact, let me point out all the ways in which Mad Nads is not only wrong, but her own lived experience should have taught her she was wrong. First of all, the illegal prorogation of Parliament in 2019. Boris Johnson asked the Queen to dissolve Parliament for a new session in order to prevent MPs blocking his plans for a no-deal Brexit. Now, he didn't give that as the reason, of course, because that would not be proper. But he nonetheless requested the prorogation of Parliament and the Queen obliged. It was made explicitly clear that the majority of MPs were opposed to this. Yet they could do nothing but wait for the case to be heard by the Supreme Court, who then did declare the prorogation illegal and that Parliament was effectively still in session. Boris Johnson and Jacob Rees-Mogg had lied to the Queen. No consequences, of course. There are some powers that rest with the executive, and there is nothing MPs can do in the moment those powers are exercised without their consent. Parliament can pass legislation to take those powers away, but wouldn't have time to do so in a reactive way. So if Sunak contacts the King and asks him to dissolve Parliament for a general election, the King will oblige. He has no choice. Not that there's any reason for the King to want to refuse. Most of the country wants a general election. It may even be that MPs, by and large, want a general election. It's not clear how many. Then Nads seemed to suggest that she thinks letters going in to call for a confidence vote should somehow be a barrier to Sunak calling an election. This is a nonsense. Confidence letters are an internal party matter, nothing to do with Parliament. Parliament allows the Conservatives, just like every other political party, to use their facilities for this sort of party business, but it's not part of Parliament's operation. And Nads has seen numerous Prime Ministers resign mid-term and be replaced as an MP. For example, when Boris Johnson announced his resignation, he was still Prime Minister for months afterwards. Even when Liz Truss was voted Conservative leader, because that's all the election was for amongst party members. It was to vote for the leader, not the Prime Minister. We don't vote for Prime Ministers. Boris Johnson was still the Prime Minister when Liz Truss was the Conservative Party leader. That didn't stop until Boris Johnson had gone to the Queen and offered his resignation and had it accepted. So unless Sunak is planning to resign voluntarily, he will remain Prime Minister even if the Tories voted to oust him as party leader, and even if they replaced him with a new party leader. I mean, let's say the Tories moved really quickly, right? And they suddenly decided this afternoon, or tomorrow afternoon now, so this is going to be published quite late on, that they're going to replace him in the space of hours. It's like, right, we're going to get rid of you, and here's your replacement. All done within a few hours. It's not credible. Let's just say that happens. Sunak would still be the Prime Minister. The only way to force him out of office against his will would be a House of Commons confidence vote. And the only person who can call one of those and guarantee a vote takes place quickly is Keir Starmer. As leader of the opposition, he can call for a vote of no confidence whenever he likes, and the vote would probably take place the very next day. No one else can. There's not really a procedure set up for an MP of the government party to call for a vote of no confidence in their own Prime Minister. It's not really expected, it's needed. And I'm not entirely convinced Keir Starmer would be interested in doing the Tories a favour by pushing for a motion that will have the effect of stopping a general election being called. Absolutely baffling that Dories, who was an MP for so long and lived through so many mid-term prime ministerial resignations, simply doesn't understand how executive power or the relationship between Parliament and the government works. Finally, it's worth pointing out that it was this Parliament of Tory MPs, including Nadine Dories, who voted to give the Prime Minister this power. Back in the coalition years, David Cameron passed the Fixed Terms Parliament Act. As the name suggests, it fixed the date of future elections, just like in normal countries. If the government wanted an early election, it had to ask Parliament. It did so twice. The Prime Minister did not have the power to simply call that early election whenever they chose. So when Theresa May wanted her snap election in 2017, she had to ask MPs, who duly obliged because they had a majority and they were all for it. When Boris Johnson wanted a snap election in 2019, he had to ask MPs, who initially told him to sod off, because he didn't have a majority. Before eventually they took some of Michael Gove's special pills and gave him that ill-fated election a couple of months later. Then MPs scrapped the legislation, taking the power away from Parliament and giving it to the Prime Minister. The MPs bellyaching about how Sunak could call an election if they tried to oust him voted for it. Mind you, if the Act had remained in law, we'd still be having a May election. That would be definite, because it fixed the date of election not 5 years after the previous one, but the sort of in the May, as long as there was no more than 5 years later. So basically we would have had a general election this May. But they could have amended the legislation if they didn't like that bit. They could have amended the legislation to retain the power with MPs, with Parliament, but allow for a full 5 years if they wanted. They didn't want to. They chose to let their leader make the decision unilaterally. And so here we are. If Sir Graham Brady ever tells Sunak that the number of letters has reached the threshold, there is absolutely nothing to stop Sunak deciding to call the election 5 minutes later before that information is made public. It would be very bad form, sure. You could argue it would be dragging the palace into politics. Absolutely. Oh, a terrible thing to do. But there'd be nothing to stop it. Not even the Supreme Courts, because unlike prorogation, the government can call a general election for whatever purpose they like. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.